Okay, another episode of the Josh Cast. Another day, another apocalypse, I always say. I don't always say that. So, here's the thing. They're saying that we need to socially isolate. Again, which for me has always been the norm. Except, as a comedian, I always want to be getting up and performing. The problem is, if I go to what few open mics are still open, that's not really socially isolating. And from what I'm reading about this disease, if it can be on a surface for 3 days, I am increasing the risk of getting it or carrying it. So, but then I ask myself, oh, is that just an excuse? Should I just, grin and bear it and go through the open mics anyway? And just, wear protective clothing and wash my hands multiple times, et cetera, et cetera. Except unless somebody else has it and it's in the air droplets. So I think I've decided not to risk it. But that said, I still want to be a comedian. And so all that's left with is basically writing, putting stuff out there, and doing this podcast. Could I do the podcast with someone else? Theoretically, yes. But I want to see if I can do this on my own. If I can get to the point where enough people listen to it, and then from there, go from there. What do I mean by go from there? What I mean is, I want to be able to do this on my own. I've always felt that. That's why I flirted with improv, but then went to stand-up. Now, obviously, it's not alone. I mean, it's going to require an audience. Some people are going to have to download it in order for it to work. Yes, I get that. But I want the performance to be alone. And even if I'm having a conversation with someone else, and they're talking back to me, I don't need that. I don't need another person's opinion. Laugh or don't laugh. That's as Jimmy Pardo would say. Laugh or don't laugh. That's it. That's all I care about. So now, I think the best thing I can do is do my 15 or 20 minutes a day, put it out there, and hope that someone is laughing. And I just can't be in the same room to enjoy it. Maybe there's a Zen thing about that. So that's how we're going to proceed until the all clear is given. So, what are we talking about? I just talked to my parents. They're asking if I'm okay. For the moment, I am okay. Mom and I, of course, spent the better part of 15 minutes laying out the worst case scenarios. I'm proud of myself because I really feel like this time the student has become the master. And she was saying, "Oh, we're always going to have internet." I'm like, "No, we're not. No, what if too many people die of this and they can't maintain the equipment? Then we won't have internet." Then she said, "Then what do we do? Then I'm just going to have to build a wagon and go around and it'll be like the Middle Ages. That we'll have no choice but to become wandering minstrels." Which reminds me of that story I was reading about the wandering Jew, because I was studying more about Judaism. And I guess there was this Jew that I think he mocked Jesus or something. And so, I don't know if it was Jesus who did this or if it was someone else who did this. But the wandering Jew, was basically cursed to wander the earth until Jesus came back, and may to this day still be wandering the earth. Which, can I say that when I read that, a part of me was like, I'm kind of jealous of him because he had to get to a point, as neurotic as Jews are, where he said, you know what, I've been alive 2,000 years. I don't think I need to pay health insurance. I think I'm okay. I think I'm gonna, you know what, I think I'm gonna let this Blue Cross go. I don't need this. You'd think we would have. What does a wandering Jew do after 2,000 years? I mean, you'd think at one point, it probably wasn't always wandering. He probably, it was probably more like the Highlander movie where he had, one life here, one life there. I feel like it would be cliche of me in this story of the wandering Jew to suggest that he is in Florida. It would be cliche, but it would also, unfortunately, make the most logical sense. Where else would a wandering Jew go in this day and age than Florida? It makes total sense to me. That somewhere in a retirement community in Florida, the wandering Jew is sitting there with a bunch of other old Jews, and he's saying, oh, you think the air conditioning is bad now? You should have been there in the dark ages. There was nothing. No, there was no thermostat back then. I mean, it was just, you were hot or you were cold. That's it. You'd say, I'm too cold, and the person next to you would go, it's the dark ages. What do you want? What would you like me to do about that? Are you an inventor? Do you remember anything from the Romans that could help? No. Well, then you're cold. All right, I'm cold. Interesting story, the wandering Jew. Maybe we're all the wandering Jew. I certainly feel like a wandering Jew right now. I'm literally walking as I'm doing this podcast. Maybe the wandering Jew is a metaphor for the artistic restlessness. And by artistic, dare I say that each and every one of us has a desire to create, whether it's creating something artistically, whether it's building a business, whether it's having children. A desire to be a god in our own world. And we go through life looking to create in one form or another. And if you'd like to hear more, I have a meditation and self-actualization tape you can buy on my website, wanderingjew.com. Oh, he would have a website by now. I think he would be sitting there at his home office. Well, what am I saying? He doesn't have a home office. He'd be sitting there at a cafe, getting into an argument with his friend because he can't decide, should the website be www.wanderingjew.com or www.thewanderingjew.com? Because I don't know any other wandering Jews, do you? Well, I mean, but I'm the wandering Jew. I'm the one. No other wandering Jew has been alive for 2,000 years that we know of. Listen. I've been around 2,000 years. I would have heard of another wandering Jew. Believe you me, word would get around. That was a pregnant pause. I think that means I'm moving on to a different subject matter. That was a nice little riff. I feel good about that. Okay, I'm ready for this quarantine to be done now. I'm good. It's been about 15 minutes. Let's do something else. Let's not quarantine. Let's get back into it. Here's my other question about this quarantine. What's to stop the next virus from causing this? There may be no way to stop it. I mean, it may just, even if we do all of this, it may still, it sounds like it's still going to happen. But maybe the whole world needs to stop for a minute, to catch its breath. Maybe collectively as a single entity, which in a way is what we are. Maybe this is forcing us to take a moment and reflect and think about what we're doing. And then proceed to continue to make the same stupid decisions we've been making that led us here. I like that plan. Other people have noticed this about me, and they've mentioned, Josh, you seem much calmer than one would expect in the face of all of this. And what I like to tell them is, oh, you've seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet. My body just could be preparing for the massive nervous breakdown. That could be what's happening. I'm a little concerned that I'm not as concerned as I should be. I don't know how I feel. I mean, the thing that sucks is not being able to get up and perform. That bothers me. And I don't know, maybe I'll dare to break the quarantine as we get further into this. That's a definite possibility, if you will. Gotta find other things. I don't know. I like this. I like where we're going with this. I like where we're going with this this wandering Jew notion. I like that. That could be something. That's enjoyable. That might be the name of this podcast. Dare I say it? I dare. What's another? I feel like every podcast there's always a cartoon or a movie or something I want to just talk about, just to get my mind off of things. So, what do I want to talk about? James Bond. Let's talk about James Bond. I tweeted this. I'm sure I'm not the first person to think about this, but I do find it amusing that No Time to Die was postponed because it's no time to die. So that right there, I've just solved comedy. Oh, this is another thing I was talking about with my mom, actually. The difference between doing a podcast and performing in front of people is there's no one to tell me it's bad. So, you know, for however long this lasts, I'm batting 1,000. You know, the only one who can tell me it's awful is me, who thinks that everything I do is awful, and therefore is negated. So, this really might be the best. This might be the best round of performances I've ever given in my life. This might be the top notch. What you're listening to right now. But James Bond. Let's talk James Bond. Let's discuss it. Let's break it down. I'm not a fan of James Bond because, and I know this is going to sound ironic, he works alone, and I'm a loner, but I like fantasizing that I'm part of a team. I like to pretend that I'm good with people. So that's why I'm more into Star Trek or even the Marvel movies like the Avengers with the team-up movies. They all get together. The only loner thing I like is Batman. And I think that's because the depression level is just so intense. I can relate to that. I can get on board that. But Bond, I have a harder time relating. Because at the end of every movie, he gets the girl, and she says, "Oh, James," and then in the next movie he's single again. So in between every Bond story, he's breaking up, or she's breaking up, or it's not working. It never works. So I don't feel like I'm seeing a happy ending. I feel like I'm seeing the moment right before the sad ending. Every James Bond movie is just, it's like they just turn off the tragic part of it 5 minutes before you get there. Drives an Aston Martin that has a car that has a bunch of gizmos in it. Very technically savvy. Batman does this too. I like the way Batman does it better because Batman puts more flair into the vehicle. You know what? The more I think about it, I gotta say, I like a hero who puts flair into the vehicle. There's certain Batmobiles where the front of the Batmobile has the head of a bat on it. That takes, that's going the extra mile. Like that right there, that's the difference between leaving a 15% tip and a 20% tip. Man, if Batman saved my life as opposed to James Bond, I would give Batman 20% versus 15. James Bond, he's wearing his tux, which you could get anywhere. The Aston Martin looks normal, and yes, it's got some bells and whistles on it. But Batman, he went into all that energy and time to build a costume. And the fact that he is willing and able to go out in public looking like that and save my life, 20% tip. James Bond, 15% tip. That's all I'm saying. That's my take on that. So, Bond. Oh, this is the other thing. I think I've talked about this before. I'm going to talk about it again, though. When the producer says that there's no way to do a female James Bond, I think that's ridiculous. I think you could easily do a female James Bond. If a woman can play Hamlet, a woman can play James Bond. If a woman can handle the immortal words of the immortal bard, I'm pretty sure a woman can say vodka martini shaken not stirred. But what about all of the sleeping around? I don't think the gender of the person matters. You just got to be likable. That's the essence of James Bond. You've got to be likable and a little bit dangerous. You're telling me that there aren't women like that? Women can't be James Bond. It's ridiculous. I can prove it. I'll tell you. I'll do exactly what you need to do. Here's how I know that women can play James Bond. It's a 2-step process. Step 1, go get a picture of Wonder Woman. Step 2, draw a tuxedo over that outfit. There you go. James Bond. Boom. Done. But James is a man's name. Well, until it isn't. Jamie, Jane, I don't know. You can totally do it. Anything is possible. How do you do James Bond? How do you write a James Bond screenplay with a female James Bond? Interior, MI6. James Bond, start parentheses. Female, 32 years old. End parentheses. There, I did it. I just did it. What's the plot? Oh, it's, there's a villain. He wants to destroy everything. And James Bond is going to stop him. Print. Send. That's a wrap. All right, I feel good about that. I think my biggest fear is that I'll be doing all this writing And then, if and when I ever get to perform again, I'll be so disconnected from reality that people will just stare at me and go, "What is he talking about?" You know, I'll be on stage saying, "The Care Bears, people, the Care Bears don't really care." The audience is like, where has he been? What Care Bears? The plague has killed everyone under 30 except him. We don't know what he's talking about. Do you have any jokes about the Teletubbies or Invader Zim? Oh, I don't. All right, well, got some stories there. That happened. It's about 20 minutes. It's my goal, to do a 20-minute set per day. Get it out there. You know, be safe. Wash your hands. And we'll do this again tomorrow. Sound good? All right.